context. So we have a very clear delineation and separation now of what's in core, always going to be the same, and what's going to be country configuration, which supports country specificities. So the exciting thing in 2025, we're going to have all of this new custom features. So we're going to be able to create custom life events. So in the past, OpenCRVS supported birth, death, and marriage. And of course, we intend to extend that to other life events as well. But rather than doing it incrementally, add divorce, add legitimation, etc., we've gone back and we've refactored OpenCRVS so you can create any life event now in OpenCRVS VLUX. So custom life events, just an example of the vastly more flexible feature within OpenCRVS. Likewise, custom certificates, you can have as many different certificates for life events as you like. They're already customizable within OpenCRVS, but you can have as many now as you like. You can define your own custom user roles and provide permissions or scopes to those roles as you like. Again, custom business process flows. So we've seen in different countries that the business process of civil registration, who's required to validate or attest a declaration, for example, is changing. And we've seen quite large disparities in the way that civil registration is done around the world. So now you'll be able to customize your business process flows. So whatever that business process looks like in your country, you'll be able to manage that in OpenCRVS. And finally, custom data visualizations using a data lake approach within OpenCRVS. So all the civil registration data is available for you to be able to create custom visualizations of that data in the way that you like. So that's the first sort of pillar for 2025. As you can probably see, in a combination of custom life events and custom business process flows and roles, for example, there's vast amounts of flexibility going to be in OpenCRVS in the very near future. So we're very excited about this, and the team's hard at work to make this all possible. The second pillar, I'm not going to dwell on too much because we have Riku, our technical architect, who's going to dive into this a little bit later. But just to frame this, we think it's very important to maintain what we're calling our technical excellence as we're rolling out greater amounts of flexibility in OpenCRVS. We're refactoring currently for a greater degree of modularity and interoperability through APIs. We've revised the data model, which is going to support flexibility and also person-centricity in the future. So that's really exciting. We're investing lots of our time to ensure end-to-end integration with ID systems, something that many countries are really interested in, not just civil registration in isolation, but civil registration and how that provides the basis of foundational identity for identity systems, digital identity systems. We're working very hard, in particular with MOSIP, to ensure that OpenCRVS and MOSIP work seamlessly together. And finally, as ever, we continue to maintain sort of technical excellence in the area of security by design. And that's an ongoing, continuous approach which we're adopting. And the third pillar, from a product perspective, we're also trying to maximize adoption of OpenCRVS. So we're certainly supporting requirements that we hear back from our reference implementations, work which is led by our impact expansion team. But we're also listening out for new CRVS standards, work ongoing at the moment in Africa on the African Civil Registration and Shared Asset normative standards for digital civil registration systems. That's a great step forwards, and certainly will be making sure that OpenCRVS supports and works to those standards to maximize adoption across Africa. We're ensuring that OpenCRVS is easy and simple to deploy onto cloud and on-premises infrastructures. I think that's very important. And all the while, we're improving our documentation and guidance to make this as easy as possible. Obviously, OpenCRVS as an organization is leading some reference implementations, but we're working closely with implementers, system integrators around the world and countries to ensure that they're able to deploy and configure OpenCRVS themselves. So ongoing improvements in documentation and guidance are very important. Next, please, Marcio. So this is what the plan, the roadmap for 2025 from a product perspective is looking like. Marcio is going to introduce us to items top left in version 1.7.0 of OpenCRVS, which will be formally launched next week on the 11th of April. So we've got the webinar slightly the wrong side of 11th of April. We're doing the webinar first this time. So that's going to include custom users and scopes and certified copies. More on those in just a second. Next, a little bit later in the year, as I mentioned, we've been working hard with the MOSIP team, the Modular Open Source Identity Platform, to ensure end-to-end flows from birth registration all the way through to death registration, making sure those flows work together seamlessly with the MOSIP ID system. So that'll be available in June in version 1.8. And then, as you can see, the work resulting in from the refactor of OpenCRVS, which I mentioned before, something which we're prioritizing this year, will come a little bit later in the year. So custom events, the ability to add any vital event you like into your OpenCRVS configuration will be available formally and publicly available in September. And then other custom additional flexibility of OpenCRVS customizations will be available in October. And that would be the custom work queues. So that will give you the ability to customize the work queues in OpenCRVS that you see. Custom actions is really a set of specific actions you can take on a record. Together, work queues and actions is what gives us the ability to support customized business processes within OpenCRVS. And then office hierarchy, a smaller piece of work which is to do with ensuring that within OpenCRVS you have the concept of supervisory offices, which is currently not possible. So that also increases the flexibility and supports the way that civil registration is actually coordinated and administered in country. So those are the dates. This is our roadmap for 2025. So lots of exciting stuff to come. Obviously, we're sharing this so that countries and system integrators, implementers who are planning work later in the year can aim off for these important milestones and enhancements in OpenCRVS, such that projects can be scoped and planned using the latest and greatest version of OpenCRVS. That's very important, particularly with the increased flexibility and configurability of OpenCRVS that we'll see this year. I just made a quick note on this slide. Sometimes we get requests for early access to some of these releases. Now, this is not done as standard, but certainly for accredited implementation partners, we have sometimes made early access versions, we could call them beta versions, available to implementers in advance of the full release. Now, this could be helpful for a number of reasons. It allows the implementer to do early testing of a country configuration, provide feedback to OpenCRVS, in effect, additional testing in addition to what we can do at OpenCRVS. And of course, it allows an implementer to show the value of those features to a country in case they want to run them as a proof of concept. So just sharing that as well. Next slide, please, Marcia. So, beyond 2025, potentially towards the end of this year and looking forwards into next year, other exciting features still in our pipeline and our backlog. We've got digitization of paper records, a priority for a number of countries. to ensure that paper-based archives can be digitized, so the stock of civil registration records can also be digitized and used in a digital format within OpenCRVS. So we'll provide a facility to allow data entry within OpenCRVS. So all data will be housed in one place. We've got configuration versioning over time. So this will be very important. A good example would be where administrative boundaries change in a country over time. OpenCRVS can currently cope with the addition of a new location or administrative area, but of course changes to boundaries is a little bit more complicated. So versioning those and having over time different versions of administrative boundaries and how they will affect civil registration records will be available shortly too. We're also very excited about person-centric views. So as mentioned, our new data model will support a more person-centric way of viewing civil registration data. So traditionally, obviously, a civil registry is recording is event-centric, as in it records events, separate from one another. But of course, the advantage of a digital system, it allows events to be associated with one individual who's uniquely identifiable. So that will be possible. And so in the future, we'll have a person-centric view. You'll be able to search for a person and be able to see all vital events related to that person. We're also looking, in terms of next generation civil registration systems, we're looking at vital event certificates being available in new and modern formats, such as verifiable credentials. So that's certainly something to look forward to, the concept of QR codes and verifiable credentials being stored in a digital wallet on your phone, for example, rather than a paper-based certificate that typically countries are using now. We're going to be looking at that too. And then some other advanced civil registration features which have been requested from some countries, for example, protected records, records which are not viewable by all users, validation overrides. Obviously, within the declaration form, we have validation rules. Sometimes it's necessary to override those rules, etc. So some more advanced civil registration features will be included as well. Back to you, Marcio.
Awesome. Thanks, Ed. Thanks a lot. So let's talk about the features that are going to be released on the 11th of April. Two features. One of them is called certified copies, and the second one is called custom users and scopes. Let me talk a little bit more in detail about each of them. So certified copies, what we heard from countries, let's talk about the challenge from the problem space first. We heard that countries might have different versions of the same type of document. Let's say a birth certificate might have a smaller version or a long version, and they are all accepted in different circumstances. So we wanted to give the countries and you all the flexibility of being able to choose between the template that you want to issue, the kind of document that you want to issue based on the specific occasion or circumstance that your user might want. So as you can see in the illustration here is the ability to select between one version A or version B of the same document. Yeah, this allows us like higher configurability. Like we want to give flexibility to our partners in order to so you can implement different templates based on your context. Just illustrating a bit further, here's a template screenshot on the left where you can see at the moment you want to issue and print a specific certificate, you're able to select them, which one you want to print. So is it like a certificate of birth, or is it a copy of the full record, all the information when it comes to the information of the parents, information of the parents' locations, location of birth. And there's an example here, also like a receipt of the certificate of the issuing the certificate. So it's just to illustrate the ability of adding, configuring different templates of the same document. Okay. Next, custom users and scopes. Again, let's talk about the problem space. We know that countries are different. You have different agents that might perform different tasks. We want to give the specific users certain admin levels, certain scopes, as we're calling, meaning tasks that we want to allow them to perform. So again, as we had mentioned, our intention is to make the platform as configurable, as flexible as possible. So when it comes to implementing in your own reality, you're able to say, these are my type of users. I want my specific users to perform those specific tasks. So that's what this feature is about. So as you can see here, you're able to create on the left here users based on your context. And let's say a healthcare worker here is the user that you created will be able to perform a task, declare, but we configure that that person, the user, doesn't have the scope to do registrations. Okay. Being a bit more illustrative, talking about the configuration templates that you are able to use and download and configure. Seeing here, this is where we configure the specific type of users. For this example, we're talking about a hospital clerk and a community leader. These are our custom users. And here is a list of the tasks and the scopes that we have, and you're able to say true or false. A hospital clerk will be able to declare a birth, declare death, submit for review, but will not be able to perform the other tasks. Differently to the community leader that can do decorations, but also can print and issue a certified copy. This is an example. This is the template we want to use to illustrate what this feature is about. It's about giving you the ability to configure, create users, and configure what tasks the users can or cannot perform. Last, but without, just to illustrate here the documentation, please. We are really proud of our documentation. We are constantly updating, constantly working on making sure our documentation, our videos, our GitHub page is up to date. The team is working really hard on updating the content so you are able to get this information and implement, configure in your own realities. So please check our YouTube videos, check our documentation websites, our GitHub pages, because the team is working really hard to keep those set of information up to date. Okay, so I'm now passing the word to our tech architect, Riku Ruvila. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Marcio. If you could just go on to the next slide, I think for everyone in the call, it's pretty clear that we are moving to a direction where OpenCRVS becomes increasingly more flexible. And of course, we aim to do that while maintaining technical excellence. So let me just explain a little bit what that means in practice. So we are continuously making OpenCRVS more modular, and in practice this means that besides adding more configuration options, we are making the product increasingly extensible by exposing many core functionalities as standardized, well-documented, programmable interfaces, so APIs. And this enables external systems to interoperate with OpenCRVS, and it also allows developers to build new features or even full applications on top of OpenCRVS, using OpenCRVS as sort of a data registry in the background. And for example, a government self-service portal could be built using these APIs. At the same time, this modular approach really benefits us internally. So it allows these core functionalities that we have in OpenCRVS today to be externalized into standalone modules or apps. And this not only simplifies our architecture, but also makes the system much easier to maintain and scale and, of course, adapt to different country needs. We are also integrating ID platforms, just as Ed mentioned, like MOSIP, and we are doing it end to end into OpenCRVS. And this means that we need to design new ways for other modules to not only connect to OpenCRVS with the APIs, but also be able to somehow transform the UI and the user experience of OpenCRVS. And as an example of this, you could imagine the birth declaration form being pre-filled with the parent information just by scanning their ID card. Another thing that was mentioned was that we are indeed introducing a new data model. The new custom live events and configurable business processes mean that we can no longer rely on the assumptions based on birth, death, and marriage. Instead, the model now must be flexible enough to support any civil registration workflow and any civil registration data. And this new structure also allows for a more person-centric view of the data, where all of the person's life events could be easily aggregated and displayed in a single UI, for instance. And these changes to the data model also aim to improve, of course, the reliability and maintainability of OpenCRVS and also the developer experience that we have while building new functionality to OpenCRVS. And like always, we are still fully committed to continuously improving the security posture of OpenCRVS, and we see security as a continuous process that we aim to keep on improving all the time. In 1.7, we introduce a number of improvements that we have identified through our many times automated processes and by also collaborating with different countries and seeing real-life deployments of OpenCRVS. Thank you. Back to you, Marcio.
Awesome. Thanks, Riku. Cool. So let's move on. After all this that Ed shared about our future plans, that we shared about the features that are coming now, Riku spoke about our aim to maintain technical excellence. Let's use our interactive tool to hear from you. Let me share my screen. Oops. In your opinion, please use the QR code, as for those who haven't used yet, to share with us from your opinion, what are the most important characteristics of a digital CR system? We want to hear your thoughts. You can still see my screen, yeah? Cool. Integration with other systems. Yeah, we saw some comments already here on the chat. Fantastic. Security, secure. Riku, are you taking notes?
Of course.
It's nice, like this word cloud, when you see like people adding the same word and you see like the words like expanding, which means it gives us an idea of the level of importance. Trusted source of credentials, integration with other systems, easy to deploy.
I think integration will be a key thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thanks, Minu. If I may, Marcia, the number of times security coming up here, we continue to have OpenCRVS independently penetration tested. A commitment that we make to ensure that a third party is able to test the cybersecurity of the platform, both the application itself and as deployed onto local infrastructure, which we recommend for all implementations, obviously before go live.
Amazing. So we have one more question, and I'm going to start the question now. Now, share your ideas. Open-ended question. What feature would you all love to see in the future? If we have to implement something new that we haven't spoken about yet, what would that be?
Likewise, those features that I mentioned would be coming out later this year or next year. If you want to validate those, please share those as features that you underline you think are of great value.
Digital credentials, person-centric view. Citizen access. It's amazing. Keep them coming. Come in. AI assisted deployment, yes. So many AI tools coming out now. We need to start thinking what we can do, right? Like we've been speaking so much about AI, and when we think about the context where we work on, and sometimes we don't have connectivity. So what can we do with AI in that space? And more French. Sorry, I would love to speak French. I might have to put that on my roadmap for the year. There's still people typing. French. Cool. No taken. Folks, we need to carry on. Keep them coming. Like this question is still open on your phones. I will just go back into our presentation as we have one more slide before going to Q&As. Say hi to our new product manager, Arusha. Say hi, everyone. I don't know, you can use the chat to say hi to Arusha. Please do. She needs that. Arusha is our new product manager. She's taking over my current role. Arusha, do you want to say hi?
Yeah, thanks, Marcia, for the introduction. Happy to be part of the OpenCRVS team. Cool.
Yeah, so all the new
Thank
features that you're asking here, you need to ping Arusha because she's going to implement them all. Arusha is taking over the product manager role. I am going to be working more on the IET, as we call it, the Impact Expansion team, moving forward, working with Anina, Ewan, and hopefully partnering with all of you here on the call to understand countries' requirements, to work closely with you to test new assumptions, test new features, understand your reality, your context, and translate that into our product. So I'm really looking forward to that. More to come soon. Thank you, everyone. And now I think we are ready for our Q&A. So on your phones, I think you can see a tab called the Q&A. So I'm going to share my screen again because we should be able to see Q&A. Let me know if you can see that on your phones. And you'll see those questions coming. I'll try to answer them.
So you'll be able to ask a question. You'll also be able to vote up a question which someone else has asked, which you think is a great question. That will help prioritize it for a quick answer on this call.
I'm trying to see the Q&As.
It doesn't look like anyone's actually asked a question
Yeah.
on that.
No. So we can use, yeah, someone is testing. Okay, it is working. That's one way to ask questions, of course, but you're free to ask questions here using the chat, but also open your mics and raise questions to us. This is a space for us to have a nice conversation. There's a chance, folks. Okay. There's no one with a question. I cannot believe that. No.
There were some questions raised in the chat, but Ed's responded to those.
Yeah, so just briefly, while we wait, there was a question around the features which I mentioned earlier to do with the roadmap. So I introduced the roadmap for 2025, and then I shared a few features that we're also excited about working on later in the year and in 2026. Yeah, so just to set expectations, those will likely be towards the end of the year and next year. But of course, now that you've been introduced to Arusha as our product manager, getting requests into OpenCRVS for which features you think are of most value and should be further up our product backlog, we'd love to hear from you.
I'm just having a look in the questions that came here earlier on the chat if we missed anything. I don't think so. There was something about integrations and interoperability with other DPG systems.
Yeah, so let me just take that one. So Minu, thanks for that. Obviously, it's quite a popular requirement, interoperability with other DPGs, like health systems like DHIS2. In particular, we see that as a very, extremely important interface, for the improvement and increase of birth registration rates around the world, having health systems being able to integrate directly with OpenCRVS in the form of a notification of a birth or indeed a death that's taken place in a health facility can then come into OpenCRVS. So I've shared some documentation on how that is done. And obviously that's a trigger point then for the formal civil registration process to continue. Other DPGs that we have worked quite extensively with, obviously MOSIP as a digital identity or foundational identity system, mentioned that a number of countries are taking that route where they implement both MOSIP and OpenCRVS together. And also we have tested social protection systems, so like OpenG2P and OpenSPP, the social protection platform. We have tested integrations with those systems where the social protection system is building up a list of beneficiaries based on civil registration data. So in fact, the social protection system queries the civil registry data to understand eligibility of mothers, for example, for a child grant for their newborn child. So this is all possible now in OpenCRVS using our standards and APIs that Riku referred to.
I'm just sharing my screen because a question came up. I do not speak French. Can someone help me out here?
Yeah, so the question here is, what's the envisaged approach for integration of vital events which are already existing in paper format? So, as mentioned earlier, there's a new feature coming probably towards the end of 2025 because a number of countries are asking this question. So there'll be a feature in OpenCRVS to allow, direct data entry of civil registration paper archives into OpenCRVS, potentially with a scan of the paper-based record and the collection of those details, such that OpenCRVS will then include digital data of archived and historical records, which have been imported into OpenCRVS that way, and obviously new records that have been digitally entered via digital declarations.
Awesome. There's another question here that just popped up. Currently moving forward, how can OpenCRVS support the integration with Foundation ID to or with financial service provider in eventually making e-registry?
So that's an anonymous question. I wonder whether we could just get a little bit more detail around that question. That would be great. I mean, yeah. I mean, in terms of eventually making an e-registry, certainly the OpenCRVS is already an electronic registry of vital events data. As mentioned, that's the data which is currently accessible through APIs to create beneficiary lists for social protection programs, for example. In the future, it'll be more powerful because the e-registry will be a person-centric registry, so you'll be able to search for persons and their relevant vital events, or the vital events themselves. The integration with foundational ID, that's the piece of work and what we're prioritizing in terms of the end-to-end flows. Currently, we're working on those to ensure that OpenCRVS works, seamlessly with MOSIP, the modular open source identity platform, from birth, such that a unique identifier is created within the foundational ID system at birth, and then all the way through to authentications, obviously based on that individual, all the way through to death, where a death record is also shared with a foundational identity system, such that that can be flagged for appropriate processing by relying parties.
Yeah, and as you are already answering questions, there's one more question here about how are people able to access the global civil registration vital statistics system data as a public product?
So that's an interesting question. Obviously, the availability of civil registration data or personally identifiable data is really the mandate of the country implementing OpenCRVS. I can't think of examples of where countries make that data globally available with personally identifiable information within it. Obviously, OpenCRVS supports the export of statistical data, which is based on each vital event record within the system, and so that potentially is a more viable or realistic public product that a government could make available for research or statistical purposes.
There are also a couple of questions in the chat, just in case Marcio and Arusha didn't see them, that I think are quite interesting. One from the Ghana Statistical Service and one from Hati.
Cool. Thanks, Anina. Yeah, just opening them now. Is there a robust system in place to build a strong population register, which will be able to help district officers to update regularly?
Yeah, that's a great question from the Ghana Statistical Service. I think the direction of travel for OpenCRVS as a product, as you can see in the product vision, we're enabling person centricity, for example, is going in the direction of a population register. It would be possible in the future, potentially additional features of a population register that a civil registration system would not traditionally have would be current address, for example, of individuals. But if a country wanted to update creation of address, update of address, of course, could be treated as a custom life event. And that way, you would have an up-to-date view of all of the life events and all characteristics of individuals, pretty much like a population register. So to be seen how countries want to implement OpenCRVS to support such functionality, but certainly the data model that Riku referred to is going to enable this in the future.
Cool, thanks, Ed. We have 2 minutes, so I think we have time to answer one more question, which is the second question here on the chat. What strategies are in place to ensure long-term maintenance, local capacity building, sustainable support for OpenCRVS implementations in low-income countries, especially where technical expertise and infrastructure may be limited? Great question.
It is a great question, and OpenCRVS is taking a lead, I believe, in defining what it means to be a responsible digital public good, because we think as such, it's very important that OpenCRVS and team remain around to be able to support countries and implementers to make sure both that they have the support that they need and that the product improves over time. We have another new team member who's joined us recently called Keith de Alvis, whose role is commercial partnerships lead. So we're very fortunate and happy to have Keith now with us. Now, part of Keith's role will be to look at sustainability of OpenCRVS, in particular, look at revenue generation sources. So we're currently generously funded by the Norwegian government and co-develop. They're our funding partners. But obviously, we want to diversify our funding sources to ensure that we can remain sustainable over time, and we can provide value-add services for countries implementing and system integrators as well.
Awesome. we are on top of the hour. We want to respect everyone's time and calendars. I know you're really busy. Thank you so much for the time. We'll make sure we get back to you with the questions that haven't been answered. We capture them here in the session. So without further ado, we want to say thank you. Have a good day, and we see you very soon. Ciao.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you
Super.
very much.
Bye.
Nice
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Victor.
Uh,